Students have been told to shelter in place. That only came out about an hour ago. Some of the students tell me, though, that because of the barricades that have been set up all over the place. Okay, we see an officer approaching a window right now. You can hear people screaming, "Shame on you," "Boo." Students are all around us. They want to watch. There are also neighbors, people who live in this community here, who want to witness what happens right now. So it's very clear people have chosen not to shelter in place. There are students inside their dorms, but there are a lot of people out here on the street waiting to see what happens any moment now, Alex.
And I'm assuming it's hard to make out the shot a little bit, Antonia, but they're in full riot gear, yes?
Full riot gear. One of the officers has a shield in his arm. They have flashlights, and it looks like they're trying to find a way to break into that window that goes right into Hamilton Hall. All day long, you could get glimpses of the people who were barricaded inside. Occasionally, they would pull up a shade, unfurl a new banner that said something like "Free Palestine." They would, one even went up to the roof at one point to wave a flag for a while. And the NYPD had drone operators here who flew drones overhead to sort of monitor for quite a while before this all began. But now they're clearly trying to make an entrance through that window right there at the corner of 116th and Amsterdam.
Just for context, encampments at the University of Connecticut, Yale, and the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill were cleared out. About 4 dozen encampments on college campuses remain across the country, but the initial one, the first one, and the one where the situation is clearly the most tense and has escalated to the highest degree is here in New York City at Columbia University, uptown in Manhattan. Antonia, I don't know if you can make this out, but are they trying to speak with the protesters who've locked themselves inside? Is that what's happening?
We certainly can't hear the officers who are right by that window, but it does not look like there is dialogue. I can't actually see another person on the other end of the window, but that's because there is a shade that has been blocking any visibility into the building all day. So that's some of the instability, the concern here is one thing we do know that happened when they entered last night around 12:30 a.m. is that the first thing protesters did was wrap trash bags around security cameras. And so they may be walking into an unknown whenever the officers open that window or breach one of the doors. OK, we hear some noises. It sounds like they're oh, an officer is going through the window. The first officer has entered the window. People are screaming on the street in response. Okay, here they go.
So what we're witnessing is NYPD officers in full riot gear entering Hamilton Hall on Columbia University's campus in New York City. There are a group of about 60 people inside that building. It's unclear if they're all students, whether there are outside groups or agitators that have installed themselves in the building. The echoes of 1968 are undeniable, especially in this moment. You see just an enormous police presence. That's a crane that they're walking up to get into the building as the main entrance has been barricaded. Antonia, what is the reaction? We can hear some of it, but what's going on in the crowd right now?
There are hundreds of people chanting "Shame on you." As I said, Alex, this is their worst nightmare, and that's for people on many sides of this issue. Even for students who are upset with the classmates who escalated it to this point, who don't condone what's happened in Hamilton Hall. This is not what they wanted to have happen. There were high hopes around the negotiations at first. People were very excited about certain faculty members who they felt had good rapport with the administration and trust from the students. And they thought there might be a possibility of dialogue, of a vote of the kind that's happening at Brown University. And so for anyone who's joining us now, there's been a range of response at universities to this. We have seen consistent police presence in universities in places like Texas. We have seen what happened here at Columbia, where there was an entrance of the NYPD, about 100+ arrests back on April 18th, but then a lot of silence and an encampment that was largely peaceful for days and days and days. Then at Brown University, they closed their encampment down. And that is because the protesters were able to come to an agreement with the university to take it to a vote so that the Board of Governors, essentially, of Brown could consider the students' concerns and questions and then take action themselves. And the students felt like that was a good enough middle point that it made them feel like their voices had been heard. And so the question for many people has been, why couldn't something like this happen here at Columbia? And it's because the negotiations, the conversations seem to have failed.
Antonia, we're gonna go to Tom Winter now, but please stand by. Obviously, this is a kinetic situation. Joining me now on the phone is NBC News' Tom Winter, who's been in touch with police as we're watching this unfold live on air. Tom, what can you tell us about how the police are approaching this situation and any directives or requests they've gotten from Columbia University?
Yeah, so as NBC News was first to report about half an hour ago, Columbia University transmitted a letter to the city of New York authorizing the New York City Police Department and the city to enter its premises to make any sort of arrest that they deem appropriate or assist them in any way. Columbia University is obviously private property in the city of New York, so the NYPD just can't go on there for, whatever reason. Just because they feel like it. They either needs to be a crime in progress or a complaint, or they need to be asked on for the they need to be asked on. I want to point out a couple of things you've been looking at. If you're looking at a red flashing light on some of these officers, that's a body-worn camera. You've got a number of different types of police officers that are going in on this specialty vehicle that the NYPD has. Primarily, the initial officers that entered are part of the NYPD's emergency services unit. So there's a saying that when the rest of us need help, we call police. When the police need help, they call emergency services unit. And so the officers that initially went in are part of ESU. The officers that are going in now, you've seen some with cameras. They're there to document the arrest, to document evidence, what they've seen inside. And they obviously have the flexi cuffs. They have the bulletproof vests and the ballistic helmets as well. So their job is to go in there. The students there are likely going to face at a minimum trespassing charges, burglary charges, potentially vandalism charges. And it's what's happening inside that hall, Alex, that has law enforcement so concerned. Primarily, they're concerned that there's a group of anarchist-type individuals who have no particular ideology. It's pro-Palestine today, pro-Israel tomorrow, pro another cause next week. But their main goal, police say, is to try to find a way to engage in a violent way to fight police. And that's what has police so concerned, because they're worried about the students that these individuals have co-opted. That's their belief. And they're worried that they could get hurt. And they're certainly worried about the lives of their officers. So that's really the concern. That was the reason why you had the press conference earlier today. And that's why you've seen such an escalation over the last 8 to 12 hours in police's concern about what's going on at Columbia University. So that's why you're seeing the response tonight.
Tom, do they have any evidence that there are anarchists involved here, or is that just kind of a general concern? I'm looking at the police
NYPD
entering the hall from the window of Hamilton Hall from a ladder truck. It is a number of officers, and I'm just wondering, whether they've given any sort of intelligence on how and why they believe there might be outside groups involved in this.
Sure. So I spoke to the head of NYPD's Intelligence and Counterterrorism Program, Deputy Commissioner Rebecca Weiner, earlier tonight. She also was part of the press conference. They say they've uncovered evidence, and they've produced video and evidence that they've recovered through security cameras, through social media posts online, from inside that hall. And they say they've identified a number of individuals that are well known to the NYPD over a number of years, that they believe are definitely inside of there. They don't know the totality of the individuals that are inside of there, but they say they have hard evidence that these people are there. Time will tell. We'll see who's arrested. We'll see what comes out of there. We'll see what images we see. We'll always report. And, our job, and the NYPD understands this, is to, we never take anybody's word at face value. But knowing the people and the type of investigators involved, they do have a really good handle on these groups. And so they absolutely believe this is not a theory. They say they have hard evidence that that's the case. And that's why they're so concerned about this hall, and that's why they were so concerned about the developments there today.
All right. Well, they are certainly responding based on that intelligence right now. NBC News investigative reporter Tom Winter. Tom, thanks so much for the breaking news and information.